What's up? It's your boy Ghostie. This has been a long time coming. I've been planning to do this for a long time. The Halloween ranking on Halloween. Happy Halloween. This is the Halloween ranking you don't want to miss.
Michael? The blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
And happy Halloween.
Before we get into it real quick, I'm gonna give you the format of how we're gonna do this. I'm gonna give you some good, some bad from each movie, and then I'm gonna give you my favorite character, my favorite kill, my favorite line, and my favorite moment. So with that being said, here we go. Starting off with number 13 is Halloween Resurrection. This is the first Halloween movie I ever saw, so it'll always have that nostalgia for me. And they did a great job at recreating the Myers house. Sadly, that's where it ends. I have no more positives to say about this movie. Going on to the bad. This is completely insulting to the fan base. Laurie Strode, who is a beloved character, is killed in the first 10 minutes of the movie in an absolutely dog shit way. Michael Myers doesn't feel like a threat. He gets punked out and Bruce Lee'd by Busta Rhymes. I'm not kidding, this actually happens.
I said, what you looking at me like that for? Huh? You don't get it? You don't get it? Your shit ain't working up there or something? You need to... Wanna fuck with me? Huh? Fucker.
Everything feels out of place. The cast doesn't really fit a Halloween movie. It feels like they took everything that was kind of popular in the early 2000s and slapped it in a Halloween movie. Michael kind of feels out of place with these people. It feels very much, you can feel the time period of the early 2000s, so it dates itself in that way, even more so than some of the older movies. My favorite character is Sarah, the final girl. By default, because there's not really too much any other interesting characters. She's a serviceable final girl, you know. Definitely wouldn't make my top 10, but you know, for this movie and for an early 2000s slasher movie after the craze had kind of died off in the 90s, she does an okay job. My favorite line comes from Busta Rhymes, playing the character of Freddy. He says, "Fear is good. Fear motivates. Fear gives you the feeling of being alive." I really like that line, even for this movie. Even though he kind of says it in a conning kind of way, to get Sarah to not drop out from doing the project. Favorite kill is Donna in the basement. This is the most Michael Myers feeling thing in this entire movie. So he kind of stalks her a little bit. He's there. He kind of slowly works his way towards her, and then impales her onto this like Spike underneath the Myers house. Why we're just discovering this basement is there now, I'm not sure, but either way, it's a fine kill. My favorite moment is when after Freddy has Busta Rhymes has gone and just done every kung fu move on Michael Myers that's possible. He gets kicked out of the window, and then Freddy and Sarah are standing there, and we get he's missing. Michael's gone now. Like, he got strung up, and he's hanging onto the house, and with the use of technology in this movie, there's someone like an online chat friend of Sarah who's kind of helping her get around through this whole thing, because through this house, they're through the Myers house, they're doing like this webcast show where a bunch of kids go to the Myers house and do like a online investigative thing, and so she has her friend helping her, and she's like, "Where is he?" And the dude texts her back. The dude messages her and says, "In the house," and then he's standing right behind them and he stabs the shit out of Busta Rhymes. That should have happened earlier in the movie when Busta Rhymes punked out Michael. The 12 is Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers. This is by far the biggest drop of the series. I was kind of surprised when I watched it this year. I did not enjoy it at all. They're good. There are some good things I do like about this movie. I love the fall atmosphere. They nail making it feel like fall, and kind of an extension of that. This is the most Halloween, like, how do I want to say this? Halloween. This is the most that this franchise has actually felt like it takes place in Haddonfield. It actually feels like a Halloween movie. Not a good one, but it feels like a Halloween movie. Since the first two, this actually feels like Haddonfield. I actually buy that it's Haddonfield. More so than Part 4, which I love Part 4, but Haddonfield, the Haddonfield kind of feels a little bit off, but we'll get to that later. Halloween 5, that'll be coming up here very soon. Like the look of Michael in this movie, it's not quite traditional. I do prefer the traditional kind of coveralls. The coveralls are more like gray than dark blue in this movie. I do like the look of the mask in some scenes, although it is shot in daylight quite a bit, and just not a huge fan of seeing Michael Myers like completely up close in broad daylight. Just, it doesn't look as intimidating as it does when you use certain lighting and certain shadows and everything like that. It's always nice to see Dr. Loomis back as well, but it's bittersweet. I am going to cheat and say that this is a mixed part of the movie, because although he is the best part of it, it is also bittersweet because it's also the last time we get to see him until the Rob Zombie remakes. And but it's he feels his age in this movie, and the actor Donald Pleasance actually passed away right after completing this movie. So the man literally gave his life to the franchise and the movie. And although he does have some good moments, he definitely does feel his age. It doesn't feel the same as it did before. Even he has this one line where near in the beginning when he first gets introduced, where he's like, "I'm not dead. I'm very much retired." And it's like, oh no, Grandpa! It's always nice to see him, but at the same time, it's like watching your favorite athlete, your favorite athlete that stayed in the game far longer than they were supposed to, and now you're just watching them as a shell of them former selves. And although I do love to see him, it doesn't quite feel the same as it did in the previous movies. The bad. There's two versions of this movie: the producer's cut and the theatrical cut. I have seen both, but for this year, I watched the producer's cut. The theatrical version implies things that are mind-boggling, and I'm just, what the hell? The producer's cut just outright says them. The producer's cut fills in the gaps. So Jamie, the little girl from the previous two movies, has now been recasted from Danielle Harris to J.C. Brandy. It's unfortunate, but you know what? These things happen. It's Hollywood. You know, people get recasted all the time. Unfortunate because Jamie has now become a beloved character, and Danielle is a big reason why that character is so beloved. But you know what? It's Hollywood. These things happen. It happens all the time. But you would think that, hey, you know what? We treated the actress like shit, and it's going to upset the fans. But what if but we're going to do it. We'll make it right by giving the character some amazing things to do in the movie. You would think that's what would happen, right? Nope. That's not what happens at all. She's killed in the first 15, 20 minutes-ish. And and both versions of her death are dog shit. Absolutely dog shit. She has a baby now. Do you want to take a guess who the father is? It's Michael. Her uncle is her baby daddy. What the fuck?
You know whose baby it is, don't you?
Michael!
The baby is yours, isn't it? Isn't it, Michael?
I have questions. Was this a donor type situation, or was he actually like on top of her doing the deed? Because what the fuck? Are you kidding me? The movie is trying to justify the poor decisions made in the previous one, part 5, which once again we'll get to in a little bit. Not too far into the future. So there's a lot of catching up to do. There's a lot of justification for why things happen in that movie that they're trying to fill in the gaps for. So a little bit of a caveat to that, I guess, but they could have went in a million different directions that were fucking better than this. The characters, like the new characters, like Kara. We have a returning Tommy Doyle, who would be played by a current superstar, by a current A-list superstar, Paul Rudd. Oh, I'm sure if you're a movie fan, I'm sure you know who Paul Rudd is. And he is terrible in this movie. This was like one of his first movies, and he is terrible in it. I don't know if it was him. I don't know if it was the direction of which they asked him to go, but it's terrible. He gives such a there's one scene where him and Loomis are in the hospital, and he has Jamie's baby, and he walks away looking like this. It's weird. I don't know. Wait! We have two characters that are complete insufferable assholes throughout this movie. The characters of John Strode and Barry Sims are so fucking unbearable to watch that whenever they're on screen, you cannot wait. You know they're both going to get it, and you can't wait for Michael to kill them. And, you know, it's all right if you have one character like that in a horror movie. You typically do. But for me for us as an audience to root for the killer, multiple times throughout a movie, I feel like is a bit of a problem, personally. We're not supposed to root for the bad guy. We're supposed to root for the good guys. And, but these two pricks just, you just cannot wait to see them get filleted. My favorite character for Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, is the easiest and only answer for me is Dr. Loomis. This is the only character in this movie that I take an interest in. He's the only one that's worth watching. He's the one continuing character from the first movie onto this one that, besides Michael, who doesn't speak and has no speaking lines, so it's not the same. He is the only one that's worth watching, for me personally, in this entire movie. Even though, like I said, it's like watching your favorite athlete that played well past their prime. My favorite line also comes from Dr. Loomis. And it's when he goes to the Myers house to warn this new family, this relatives of Laurie Strode, that and he says to the mom who was there, "This house is sacred to them. He has all his memories here. His rage." It's the probably ever kill is John Strode, like I mentioned before, the insufferable asshole. He is the most unlikable character in this movie, in my opinion. And also, I'm going to cheat here, and I'm going to use the theatrical version. He gets his head blown off. He gets electrocuted, and his head explodes. Favorite moment in this movie, once again, I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to use the theatrical version because there's a lot of the producer's cut. A lot of this stuff is cut out in the producer's cut. But it's the theatrical version. Michael, when they're in Smith's Grove near the end, and Michael goes through a whole room full of doctors. You watch him walking down the hallway. There's a tray full of knives and certain surgical tools and whatever not. And he picks this one big ass knife up. It's like a steak knife. Not a steak knife. I'm not. It looks like a mini machete. And he picks it up, and then we go through, and he just wipes out the entire room full of doctors. Strobe light warning for those who suffer from epilepsy. If you watch the scene, it may trigger some things for you. But I personally have always loved this scene. He looks badass in it, and the whole effect of seeing everyone getting wiped out is pretty cool. Number 11 is Halloween 2, 2009, or Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. They're starting off with the good. The entire opening of this movie is really good. I really enjoy it. The whole part where Michael goes through, where it takes place in the hospital, which is very nice, very reminiscent to the original Halloween 2. Michael kills the nurse, who was played by Octavia Spencer, who has been in a ton of things. Seriously, if you look her up on IMDb, and her filmography is actually impressive, the amount of things that she's been in. And she gets killed in a brutal way. After that, we kind of go through, and he's chasing Laurie throughout the hospital. He ends up chasing her into this like security shack where the security guard is, and she's freaking out. We get this really cool shot of Michael. He walks across where he's standing in the rain. The rain is falling on him. He's drenched, and we get a pull. It starts close up, and then we get a wide, far away shot of him just walking across the street, walking in this parking lot with this axe, and he just looks terrifying. He looks like he's about to fuck shit up. So we go through, and we get to that part, and he ends up killing the security guard, breaks down the shack. He's about to kill Laurie, and we realize that it's all a dream. From that moment on, this movie takes an incredible nosedive. And it becomes a really hard get through. I know some people have grown to really love this movie, and that's great. Laurie is struggling with the events of the previous movie, as well as Annie, who survived, and Sheriff Brackett, who also survived. The dynamic between those three, I think, is my favorite part of the movie, besides the hospital sequence. Laurie and Annie have kind of had a strained relationship because Laurie doesn't feel like Annie can relate to her in a lot of ways. Um, and Annie herself was almost killed, so she's kind of struggling with a lot of the same things. And you would think that the two would create a natural bond, but it doesn't. It's kind of an interesting take when I'm thinking about it. Because a lot of these movies we get like the hero wins and it all in the end it all turns out okay. Rob didn't do that. Rob decided to take a much darker um darker approach to this movie. She doesn't overcome it, and she struggles with it throughout, and it gets very uncomfortable to watch sometimes. Had they taken some certain things out, that this would have been higher up, because I do kind of like the different take on it, and it's not your standard. The good guy prevails. The bad guy dies, and it's a bit of a different take and a much darker take, which is it's not the most pleasant thing to watch, but at the end of the day, it's different, and I appreciate the fact that Rob Zombie tried to do something different with the story. And the bad, going on to the bad. Rob Zombie once again shoehorned his wife into a movie. There's absolutely no reason for her to be here. I get it. I get what he's going for, but it feels forced. It feels forced as fuck. So she's here. And what we get throughout is I guess a perspective into Michael's psyche. Like, we actually get to look inside his mind, I guess, and see that he's not all there. He is seeing his mother dressed in all white with the white horse, and his goal is to try and get Lori to bring them all together and make them a family again. We are just spelling things out for Michael way too much for my liking. I do not like the portrayal of Michael in this movie at all. It's not the actor's fault. Tyler Mane does a pretty good job with what he's asked to do. It's the writing. It's the writing, and how Michael is getting these these marching orders in his mind from his mom, which once again makes it feel very Friday the 13th. And no, just no. I don't want a Halloween. I don't want Halloween movie to feel like a Friday the 13th movie. I prefer Michael to remain a mystery. I want him to remain a mystery, and he just spells out way too much in this movie. And besides that, a lot of Michael grunts a shit ton when he kills people. I get it. He's going for the effect of, he's really pissed and he wants to kill, and he's being really aggressive and really wants to fuck shit up. I get it, but the way that these kills are shot, it doesn't feel necessary, because the kills are shot pretty well, and with the film, with the camera that they used, it's very close up. It feels very grainy, very old school, almost like Texas Chainsaw type feel. But the grunting feels really unnecessary. Really, nah, it doesn't work for me. Also, the direction that they decided to take with Loomis in this movie is absolutely insane. He's no longer worried about stopping the evil. In the previous iterations, Loomis was always the one that was warning everybody and that was willing to give his life to stop Michael. In this movie, Dr. Loomis doesn't have shit to do until the final 10 minutes. He's just a money-hungry asshole who's out to sell books. And once again, I appreciate the fact that Rob Zombie tried to do something different with the character, but this wasn't it. This wasn't it. It doesn't work for me. I did not like it at all. There was a lot. You could have made him. You could have made him an asshole So he's an asshole at the beginning. He thinks Michael is dead, and then he's off selling books, and like every time he's on screen, it's just like, oh, here's Loomis doing some asshole things. And then at the end of the movie, he finds out Michael is alive from watching TV, and he goes and he ultimately sacrifices himself to save Lori. I appreciate the fact that he tried to have a redemption arc with this character, but by this point he was already too far gone. The character wasn't enjoyable throughout, and I did not give a shit that he died at the end of this one, personally. For the negatives, the ending. So once again, there's two versions of this movie: the theatrical version and the producer's cut. I strongly recommend, if you're gonna watch this movie, I strongly recommend you watch the director's cut until the ending. So I watched the director's cut this year. Actually, that's the only. So I have only actually seen this one. So I saw. I'll get to it in a bit, but this was the second Halloween movie that I saw in theaters. The first one was Rob Zombie's Halloween, the first one. So I've only actually seen the theatrical cut, the theatrical version of this movie in theaters in 2009. I got the movie on DVD, and I sat down to watch it after it came out, and it was a different ending. I said, "What the fuck is this?" So a lot of it's kind of the similar ending in a way. Only the major difference is Michael kills Loomis ultimately in both versions, but how it happens in both versions is vastly different. In the director's cut, which is the version that I watched, so that's the one I'm going off of this time. So Michael's mom tells him, "We're ready, Michael. Take us home." Michael tackles Loomis out of the shack that they're in. And Michael takes his mask off, and Loomis says, "Michael, for God in hell." And then Michael just yells, "Die!" and stabs him. Which, Michael talks. Michael talks? What the fuck are you doing? Michael doesn't talk. So then the cops blast him away, which looks very similar to, which is the same exact ending that we got in a movie that would be much higher up on this list. And but then Lori comes out of the shack. She picks up the knife, and the cops shoot her. What the fuck? So the whole purpose of them all being there is to save Lori. Loomis is clearly already dead. They've blasted Michael away. And then the cops just get quick trigger finger and just kill Lori? Huh? It's a dog shit ending. The theatrical version ending is way better. But we still get the scene at the end in both versions at the very end where Lori is in this insane asylum, and she has kind of given up. She is no longer fighting the fact that she is Michael Myers' sister, and she's kind of just letting herself be overcome by it. She now sees her mom in the White Horse. Once again, Rob Zombie has found a way to shoehorn his wife in here. Overall, it's a decent enough slasher experience to get some enjoyment out of, but as a Halloween movie, it's dog shit. My favorite character is Sheriff Brackett, which I'm surprised by. I was surprised by, but on top of being the sheriff of this town, that has kind of on top of being the sheriff of this town and almost losing his daughter in the last movie, Lori now lives with him and Andy, so now he has kind of taken over a second father role, and and you see throughout the movie he's trying to relate to these two girls, even though he can't in any way. while also keeping the secret that he knows that Michael is Laurie's brother. Really interesting take on this character. In the original two, Sheriff Brackett is a good character, but he doesn't have much to do. Here, we get much more development with this character. I think this character will once again be coming up in my favorite in a couple seconds in my favorite moment. But overall, I think Sheriff Brackett, who is played by Brad Dourif, who is Chucky, by the way, so horror alum, playing a iconic role here. My favorite kill is the nurse kill. As I mentioned earlier, it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. The only thing I would have done without is the grunting. Favorite line is there's a scene where Michael is at this strip club. Is actually the same strip club his mom used to work at. Michael's mom's a stripper. Oh, Jesus Christ. Rob Zombie's Halloween coming up soon. And so he's there. He's talking to this guy. He's in the back, and this dude is talking to him, and like this dude just keeps talking shit to him, and the scene always kind of makes me laugh when Michael kind of steps to him, and the dude just kind of steps back, and he's like, "Look, man, don't give me no reason. I've already sent one jag off to the emergency room tonight. So I suggest you take the easy road and hit the bricks, Dorothy." The whole sequence is kind of funny. It kind of makes me laugh because you know this dude's about to get fucked up. Favorite moment, and it's not so much the moment itself, but it's the performance. Once again, Brad Dourif, who plays Sheriff Brackett, gives one of the saddest performances you ever see. So Annie ends up dying. Michael finds his way to Laurie's house, and Annie is there by herself. Well, actually, there's a cop there. The cop, he gets dealt with easily. And then there's a struggle between Michael and Annie that we don't see, but all we hear is Michael's grunting and Annie screaming. Laurie finds her first. Laurie comes home after a night out partying with friends, and Laurie finds her first, and we get a very sad scene with Laurie. We get two emotional scenes back to back, where Laurie finds Annie, and she gives a very emotional scene, and then a few moments later, Sheriff Brackett comes home and finds his daughter dead, and he gives one of the I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it. He gives one of the saddest performances I have ever seen. It is unbelievable. If you have never seen this movie and you go and watch this part, you will have a hard time not breaking down into tears. It's very emotional, very sad, but it's the performance that Brad Dourif gives in the scene that makes it my favorite moment more so than the actual moment itself.
Oh God. Oh no, Andy.
My number 10. I want to give a big shout out to my friend Talk Spooky, who I know adores this movie, and say I'm so sorry for this. But number 10 for me is Halloween Ends. Halloween was so the good. It's another Halloween movie that goes in a vastly different direction. What I will say about this, the direction that we tried to go in is compelling and interesting. The story of Corey Cunningham is good. I like it. I like the fact that we kind of took a different take here, and he's just a normal kid or a young man. I'll call him a young man because when the actual incident at the beginning where he's babysitting, he's 21, and he accidentally this little kid tries to play a prank on him, and a terrible accident happens, and Corey ends up killing the kid. And then throughout, And then the rest of the movie, he's kind of bullied by the town into becoming the next Michael. I think it's interesting. I think that works. I think that story would work in its own self-contained story. As the third part in a trilogy, nah. The character moments that we get between him and Allison are really good. There's a very romance drama type feel to this movie that Laurie even kind of plays into herself. Laurie is now over the fact that Laurie is now over the fact that the things that happen, which doesn't make sense. Well, how Laurie is in this movie at the start of this movie is how she should have been at the beginning of Halloween 18. And then and how she is at the beginning of 18 is how she should be at the end of this one. But we'll get to that. I think the story is interesting. I know the director David Gordon Green said it was a kind of a tribute movie to one of my favorite John Carpenter movies, Christine. And you definitely get some of that vibe here, but overall, it is, as a Halloween movie, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Bad. The bad. It's hard for me to say this, but the bad with this movie is all centered around Michael. Whenever Michael is on screen, it massively tanks this movie. It massively takes you out of the movie because everything that they do with him is stupid. So the first time, so he doesn't show up for like the first half hour, 40 minutes of the movie. And so Corey has these bullies, which again, this is one of my negatives with the movie. So Corey is bullied by these kids in high school who are part of the marching band. These are kids in high school, and this is taking place 4 years after the fact. So Corey is now 25 years old, and he's getting bullied by kids in high school who are part of the marching band. Nah, that doesn't work. That doesn't work for me whatsoever. I think that's lame as fuck. Bullied, and he gets tossed over like this overpass, and Michael ends up grabbing him and pulling him into this tunnel sewer thing where he's been living for the past 4 years, and he grabs him by the throat, and there's like this weird scene where they look each other in the eye, and there's like this supposed to be this essence passing, I guess. Like we're supposed to believe that there's some evil that has been transferred from Michael to Corey, and it just feels weird. It feels weird, and every time Michael's on screen, they do something weird like this. So there's another part later where Allison's ex-boyfriend meets them at he sees Allison at a bar, and she's talking to, and he tries to make a move, tries to go over and have a conversation, and Corey kind of gets confrontational and defensive about it. Well, later the guy follows Corey. Corey leads him to Michael. The dude just kicks Michael over, and then Corey just kind of yells at Michael, tells him to get up and show him how to do it. Michael gets up and stabs this guy, and then he starts he becomes fucking Hulk Hogan. It's what the fuck. And then there's lastly he gets
Show me how to do it. Get up!
Corey decides that he's had enough of all the bullies in his life, so he goes into the sewer. Him and Michael have a full-blown wrestling match. He knocks Michael over and takes his mask. What the fuck? You did not need Michael to tell this story. You could have done this. You could have done this movie as its own thing with Michael. It would have had its own. I'm sure it would have had its own issues, but it's like every time Michael's on screen, we significantly stop the momentum of the movie. And this is hyped up to be the last confrontation between Laurie and Michael, and we don't get any of that until the last 10, 15 minutes or so. Once again, I appreciate the fact that they tried to do something different. But the attempt to do something different should not come in the third movie of a trilogy. If you're going to attempt to tell the story, this should have been your second movie. This could have been your second movie. Although I think Halloween 18 and Halloween Kills work perfectly fine as a 1-2 punch, and then you could have told this story on its own. But whenever Michael shows up, it significantly drags down the movie big time. Character is Corey. I think his character is really interesting. I really like him. I really like the actor and the performance of Corey, and I really think he could have worked in a different movie. Favorite kill is when he kills the radio DJ and he uses his tongue as a stylus. He uses his tongue, and you can hear on the radio like his tongue stopping the track. It's pretty cool. My favorite line comes from Laurie, and it's when Corey first gets bullied by these kids, and Laurie shows up to help him, and the kids go, "Look, it's Psycho and a freak show," and Laurie's like, "Are you the sideshow or the freak show?" And I thought that was cool. I thought that's a good line for her. Laurie is really good in this movie. I really enjoy her character too, but once again, it's the Michael stuff that kind of ruins it. Favorite moment is when Nick, Corey, and Allison are at the party, and we get the scene where Nick Castle, who is the original Michael Myers, shows up and says, "Hey, Scarecrow, see anything you like?" and opens up his robe. That's hilarious. That's great. That's a great Easter egg. Great callback. Great funny moment in a scene where it works. It works perfectly for this moment. Number 9 is Halloween 5. The title sequence to this movie is credible and one of my favorites in the series. And there's a fair amount of good kills in here too, in terms of the effects and the gore. If that's your thing, you won't be disappointed. Also, I like the fact that we get the returning characters from Part 4, Rachel, Jamie, and Loomis. Although it's nice to see them. It's nice to see them back. It's nice to see them return. But where we go with this story, oh my. The directions that they choose to take this movie with the main characters that we love from Part 4. Yeah. Jamie, the little girl from the last movie, she's mute for the first 2/3 of this movie. She doesn't talk. Her biggest line is this. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Rachel, who kind of took over that Laurie Strode type feeling, she's an idiot. She's an idiot now, and she's killed in the first 15 minutes of the movie in a dog shit way. And Loomis is a really hands-on doctor in this movie. He is out of his fucking skull in this one. He shakes the shit out of kids. He even the actor Donald Pleasance himself said Halloween 5 is rubbish. He's a British actor, so but I remember reading online this article from an old horror magazine a long time ago. I forget the name of it. But they interviewed him for this movie, and he said this movie's dog shit. And this is while the movie was being filmed. He said the movie was rubbish. And there's a lot of that. There's this random man in black now that just shows up. We have no idea who he is or what he's doing. The portrayal of Michael in this movie, the look of Michael in this movie is terrible. There's a scene where he cries. He takes his mask off and cries. And ending at the end of it, Loomis presumably dies. He has a heart attack after beating Michael with a 2x4. So he shot him. He set him on fire. And now his big to-doings to try and kill him in this movie is beat him with a 2x4. What the fuck? There isn't anything else he could have tried to do to kill him other than beat him with a 2x4. So Loomis presumably dies, and then we get the scene at the end where Michael is in this jail cell. So they capture Michael. He's in jail with his mask still on. That would never fucking happen in real life. They would never let him keep his mask on. And he's just sitting there fucking twirling his chains like, shit, I guess I was caught. What? So, the first movie is still canon in this timeline. The first movie still exists in this timeline. And what we were told in the first movie is that Michael sat in a insane asylum for 15 years, staring at a wall, and he insanely patient, waiting for the right moment to get out. Now he's just sitting here fucking twirling his chains like oh shit, what else am I gonna do? I got caught. It's terrible. This is terrible. And then, I guess what I'll say is the characters we get. So after Rachel dies, before Rachel dies, we're introduced to this new character, Tina. Here's Tina. So this is who we're supposed to follow now? This is your new Lori type character? This? Ugh. The characters are terrible. They're other than Loomis, there is nothing worthwhile in terms of story development or characters in this movie. The one thing that kind of say if Loomis wasn't in this movie and Loomis is not great in this movie either. You know what? I kind of want to cheat right now and kind of bump this below Halloween Ends, because the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm kind of preferring Halloween Ends over Halloween 5. But I'll keep it for now. I'm gonna keep it for now. This is where I ranked it, so I'll leave it there. But in a re-ranking later on down the line, if that should happen, this might get bumped down a little bit. One more thing before I forget. There's two cops. There's two cops in this movie, and every time they're on screen, we get this weird carnival circus music that plays every time, every moment that they're on screen. What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck is this? And they wanted to portray to the audience that these characters are idiots. I'm not dumb. I can see that they're idiots. I didn't need the weird audio cues to fucking help me out with that. But it's really distracting. It's really fucking stupid, if I'm gonna be completely honest. I'm not kidding, by the way. As awful as I'm making it sound, I'm not doing it justice. In fact, listen to this.
All clear.
Nothing above, nothing below.
What about Max?
Adobe, right?
This is not happening to me. Max! Max, what have you done? I'm so embarrassed.
It's what we're here for.
Rescue cats.
Find dogs.
That's a job.
And we love it.
On to my favorite character. This is an easy one. It's easily Dr. Loomis. He's the one constant besides Michael that speaks for the first 2/3 of this movie. He does have a one of his all-time great lines in this movie. So Loomis by default, because there is nobody else that is even going to come close to him in this one. Favorite kill is Mikey, Tina's boyfriend. Mikey gets a garden tool to the face. It's pretty nasty. So he has this car that he's obsessed with. You know, this feels very late 80s. He has this car that he's obsessed with. He looks like somebody that's from fucking Greece. And Michael comes up with the garden tool and scratches his car. The dude gets out and tries to was gonna hit Michael with something. Michael grabs him by the throat. He drops to his knees, and then he takes the fucking the garden tool and hits him in the face. It's pretty cool. Nasty kill. Yeah. I'm gonna give it that one. It's neat. Line from the movie is by far, once again from Dr. Loomis. This is one of his all-time greats. He says, "I prayed that he would burn in hell, but in my heart, I knew that hell would not have him." Portraying that even the devil, even hell said, "Nah, you're gonna stay out there. You're too evil from even down here." That's a great line. That's a great line. And once again, I'm not sure this movie quite deserves a Loomis line that's that iconic. The moment though is the laundry chute scene. One of the most creative scenes for a chase to happen that I have ever seen for any horror movie. There's a scene where Jamie is running from Michael in the Myers house, and she finds this little like laundry chute that goes from like the second floor or wherever the hell this fucking the layout of this house goes. Where she goes from there, where she hops into this laundry chute that goes all the way down to the basement. And she's in there while Michael's trying to get her. And Michael's sitting there, and Michael kind of... First he starts at the top, then he goes down to the basement. He's trying to grab her from the laundry chute. He can't get it. So then he just starts stabbing. He just starts going to town on the laundry chute and just stabbing the fuck out of it. At number 8 is Halloween H2O. In the good, Jamie Lee returns for the first time in 20 years to play Laurie Strode or Carrie Tate. Whatever you want to call her. She has moved to California. She faked her death. She has moved to California and changed her name, and she is now the head mistress of a private school to kind of hide from Michael. The son John, who lives with her and also attends the school she teaches at. Anytime you get Jamie Lee in one of these movies, like, you get excited for it. She's the OG final girl. So anytime she shows up, it's gonna get interest. You're gonna get excited for it. Although there are a lot of things with this movie I don't really like. Seeing Jamie Lee back and seeing her return as Laurie is one of the best parts of the movie. Also, one of the things that I do like is it's a bit of a nostalgia trip because this is the 90s Halloween movie. This is heavily inspired from Scream. The cast feels 90s. The lighting feels 90s. A lot of this feels like a 90s movie. It feels like a 90s horror movie. This, like I said, it's coming off the success of Scream. Scream had brought a lot of resurgence back to the slasher genre, which had kind of died off by this point in the 90s. Scream brought it back, and Halloween, and this is Halloween kind of reaping the benefits from it. Scream is very much a tribute film to Halloween, and Halloween in a lot of ways kind of returns the favor with this movie. The bad, a lot of the bad, and the bad. As much as I love to see the '90s nostalgia, it also does kind of hinder this movie because I do not like the setting of this movie at all. It there is no part of this movie. There's a lot of this movie that is shot in broad daylight. It does not feel like fall. It does not feel like Haddonfield. It literally just feels like we took Michael and just slapped him into a random '90s horror movie script that was trying to capitalize on the success of Scream. The Halloween score isn't very present. It's very orchestra heavy. They actually, like I said, Scream inspired. They actually took a lot of the music from Scream and put it in here. It's not scary. None of the side characters are outside of John Strode. None of the side characters are particularly interesting. So overall, it's fine. It's fine, but I think they could have done a lot better with this. My favorite character, of course, by default, I'm gonna go with Laurie Strode. She once again is the one constant throughout, besides Michael. If I could put John, who was played by Josh Hartnett, once again became big around this time. I could put him in there, but I'm gonna do the right thing, and I'm gonna say Laurie because that's really the only choice here. She's clearly the best character. Like a callback to Halloween 2, when Michael kills the nurse and the clogs fall off her feet. This kind of feels like that, only it's a little more visceral in terms of the stabs him and this dude starts fucking freaking out. He starts shaking. So I guess that would be my best kill, but overall, like, the kills in this movie in general are not particularly great. So I'm gonna pick that one by default, even though it's really like a lesser, a worse version of a better kill that we got in a better movie too, by the way. My favorite line from the movie is it's not really just a straight up line, but more so like a whole sequence where Laurie is kind of explaining to Will her past, and that is like kind of the most Halloween feeling thing in this entire movie is when she kind of goes through the exposition of the past. It's really it. Other than that, this does not feel like a Halloween movie at all. So once again, I'm gonna pick that by default. Favorite moment. Now this is as far as I know that this is a first, and it's the only time that it's ever happened. But my favorite moment personally is when Jamie Lee Laurie has a scene with her mom, her real life mom. Her mom was an actress. If you didn't know, Janet Leigh, she was the final girl in the original Psycho. It's been a long time since I've seen Psycho, so I need to go back and watch that at some point to kind of get brushed up on it, because it's once again, it's one of the OG slashers. But Jamie Lee's mom was the star of that movie, and we get a nice scene here where they have a nice loving moment together, and her mom kind of, even though she's not her mom in the movie, it feels like a very motherly moment where she's trying to like talk her up to not get over the past, but kind of move on from things from the past. And I really like it. It's a really cool moment. As far as I know, this is the only time that these two have ever been on screen together. So, yeah. I think just based on the nature of the scene, this is going to be my favorite moment for sure. Coming in at number 7 is going to be Halloween 2007. This is probably the hardest one for me to rank because I have so much nostalgia for this movie. This was the first Halloween movie that I ever saw in the movie theater. I loved it then. I got the DVD right after, as soon as it came out, and I fucking watched the shit out of this movie. I loved this movie. Watched it way too many times, more times than I could ever begin to count. One will always have a special place in my heart. Always. The second half movie is an enjoyable enough version of the remake of the original that you can get some enjoyment out of it if you're watching it, if you kind of watching it just as it follows a lot of the same beats as the first movie. Another thing I like about this movie is the cast. The cast has a lot of horror alum, has some Halloween alum and a lot of horror alum. They're all throughout this movie. So we get Danielle Harris returns. She returns as Annie in this one. We get Brad Dourif. Brad Dourif comes in. He plays Chucky. We get Danny Trejo. Danny Trejo has been in a ton of Rob Zombie movies, but I mean, you guys know who Danny Trejo is. I don't need to go into details about you guys. You guys know Danny Trejo. And yeah, I'm trying to think anybody else. I don't want to leave anybody out, but those are like some of the big horror alum. Overall, the cast is pretty good. They have the writing. The writing is a bit of it's the writing that kind of hinders them, but overall, it's pretty good. Now, moving on to the bad. The dialogue in the first half of this movie is terrible. It's white trash, and I hate the fact that we made that Michael's backstory, that he comes from a white trash family. It's so far removed from the original intent of the character that it doesn't feel natural at all. Kind of with the same point of that, there's a lot of undertones of sexual violence in this movie that is pretty uncomfortable to watch in a lot of scenes. You might get one or two scenes where there's sexual deeds happening, and then someone gets killed. It's a horror movie, that happens. Here, it's like half the movie where people are getting killed during that part. And once again, there's two versions of this movie: the theatrical cut and the director's cut. I have only seen the theatrical version in theaters. In the director's cut, after the first half, so this movie's literally three different movies in one. We get the first half is like a prequel, but the middle part of this movie all takes place with Michael as a kid in the hospital. And right before he's about to break out, how he breaks out is there's a rape scene, which feels completely unnecessary. Doesn't need to be in here at all. Not only does it not need to be in here, it's forced. Using that as your plot point to make Michael escape doesn't make sense. That in general, it just doesn't fit the vibe of a Halloween movie whatsoever. Also, one thing that I'm gonna give as a negative, it's no fault to Tyler Mane of his own, but I don't like the fact that Michael Myers looks like fucking Kane in this movie. In both Rob Zombie movies, really, but and it started with this one, but I prefer. One of the things that makes Michael scary is that he has the strength of a hulking, massive dude while being a normal sized guy. I get it. In this one, he does look scary, but it kind of takes away the mystique of the character. Like, one of the things you wonder is how this normal sized guy is that strong. Now we've kind of, between making him a white trash character and also making him that big, we've kind of removed the mystique of him altogether now. And overall, it doesn't work for me. My favorite character in this movie is Laurie Strode. Two roles that could have absolutely made this movie unwatchable, could have made this last, is the portrayals of Laurie and Dr. Loomis. So it's a remake, so you have to recast two of your most iconic roles, because let's be real, Jamie Lee wasn't going to be in this movie and Donald Pleasance had passed away already, so you had to recast your two most iconic roles. Most of them did pretty good. They both did pretty good, okay with their roles. I'm going to give the slight edge to Laurie, though. Favorite kill is the Ronnie kill. Ronnie is the stepdad, who is a piece of shit. And so when Michael is going through so another, again, this is a negative, but so Michael, in the original, Michael just kills his sister, that's it. Well, now he fucking takes out the whole house. And once again, I feel like that kind of devalues the whole opening scene for me personally. But so anyway, he kills the sister last. He kills the boyfriend and the stepfather first. The stepfather gets it in a brutal. So he's like all injured, broke from whatever the fuck. And Michael duct tapes him to a chair. How he didn't wake up while he's asleep. How he didn't wake up, who the hell knows? But anyway, he does it, and he slits his throat. And he lifts his mask off and looks at him looks him in the eyes as he dies. I think that it's a really creepy scene, but it feels to me like something that a young Michael would do. My favorite line from Dr. Loomis is from Dr. Loomis, and he says, "We're talking about a soulless killing machine driven on pure animal instinct." It sounds like a Loomis monologue that they kind of put their own spin on. It's okay. I like it. It's okay. It's pretty good for this movie, and it being one of the actual few scenes that we get of Loomis actually talking about the evil. I think this one is pretty good for this movie. My favorite moment is when Michael chases Laurie from Lindsay's house to Tommy's. Rob Zombie did a good job. Everybody did a great job in this scene, recreating what was an iconic chase scene from the first one. Once again, once you're recreating something that has already been done amazingly, trying to recreate that is hard. It's really hard because you're almost always going to piss somebody off. But in my opinion, with this scene, they did a really good job recreating it for what it was. Number 6 is Halloween 3. I'm going to take my L with this one. This is by far the biggest riser for me. I have been a Halloween 3 hater for the longest time. Never been a fan of it. But I really enjoyed it this time. I think the premise of and in comparison to some of the other sequels, it's not that bad. I enjoy the whole premise of the movie. I think it's creepy. This whole rich wacko that wants to kill every child in the world with these Halloween masks, I think is a cool idea. It's creepy, and we never really get an explanation as to why either. So that makes it creepy. I think the first two. I think the whole first half of the movie, how we get the premise, getting up to that point, getting up to the learning this plot, I think is really good. It's really cool. It's really fun to watch, because you don't know where it's gonna go, and when people start dying off, it's creepy. It's really creepy. Some of the kills are really creepy. these robots kind of taking marching orders from this rich guy who kind of go in and who will go in and kind of do the dirty work and kind of take some of these people out, some of the people who ordered the mask and have kind of learned about what's going on. What could have been, and I think if they had gotten the last half of the movie right, which is where my negatives are going to come in, this could have been something special, and this could be much higher up on the list. The score in this movie is one of the best that I've heard in like any horror movie. I watched it with headphones, and listening to the music was fucking incredible. I loved it, and of course, no surprise, it's John Carpenter who had a big hand in the music as well, in collaboration with Alan Hallworth. I can't share it because of copyright reasons, but seriously, if you haven't heard the Halloween 3 soundtrack, go listen to the score because it's amazing. Fun and out there as the premise of this is, the explanation of how we get there in the last half of the movie is nonsense. There's a lot of convenience with the script to get from A to B, to make all of this play out. If they had tightened up a little bit, like I said earlier, I think this could have been much higher on the list. My favorite kill is the kid in the room. It's dark, it's twisted, and like they're trapped in there, so there's absolutely nothing that can be done. Favorite line is when Dr. Chalice and the girl, I forget her name. I'm forgetting. I think it's Allie. I want to say Allie, but she is the daughter of dude at the beginning who ended up getting killed for learning too much about what was going on with these masks. And so they go to this town, Santa Mira, to investigate what's going on. And they get a little like one bedroom motel room, and Dr. Chalice is like, he's like, well, if it makes you feel better, I could sleep on the floor, or I could sleep in the car. And then the girl says, well, where do you want to sleep, Dr. Chalice? And he goes, that's a dumb question, Miss Gimbridge. And the whole sequence is funny. Like, he has a lot of funny lines, and when he's talking to women on screen is actually pretty funny. My favorite moment is the ending when Chalice is yelling, "Stop it! Stop it!" So he escapes. He's learned what's going on. So he goes back to his hometown, and he calls the TV stations to try and get them to get this commercial pulled off the air, and he's yelling into the camera, "No! Stop it! Stop it!" 5, all the way at number 5 already. Halloween 2018, the third movie. I'm going to call it 2018 because it's the third movie in this franchise with the title Halloween. Just Halloween, nothing else. Jamie Lee is back to play Laurie Strode once again, but with John Carpenter back as producer and also does the composer, I guess you would call it. He does the score for the movie as well. Jamie Lee once again slays her role as Laurie Strode. I think this version of her is a bit more far-fetched than what we get in H2O, but I still enjoy it. It's still fine. So this one, no longer. So in H2O, the first 2 movies are canon, and this one only the first movie is canon, which is interesting because that's never been done. That hasn't been done yet, where they just go back to the first movie. But I do like it, but I think that the fact that she's like this, still torn up over it. I mean, I know what one person feels with trauma, another person might not feel with it, but I feel like this, with only the first movie happening, I feel like the fact that 40 years later she's still like this torn up over it would be a bit. It's a bit of a stretch. Now, if you had her be like how she was in Halloween Ends, trying to be a grandmother, trying to move on, like, you know, like she's a bit of a pass, like, you know, she doesn't really celebrate Halloween, but If she was like how she was at the and Halloween Ends in this one, and then the events of this movie make her progress into that, that would make a lot more sense. Cast is overall mostly enjoyable with a few exceptions. Allison, played by Andy Matichek, I think I'm saying that right. Um, she is the granddaughter of Laurie Strode, but she is also, you kind of get the vibe that she is also being set up to be the new Laurie. You kind of get that vibe throughout the movie. She's kind of vulnerable. She has a lot of vulnerability. She kind of gets shit on by a boyfriend. That's a recurring theme throughout the whole trilogy of movies here, outside of Halloween Kills. She wants to have a relationship with her grandmother, as to where her mother doesn't. Her mother, who is played by Judy Greer, she's a negative. She's a negative for me in this one. She it feels a bit wooden, and her dialogue is really, although a lot of the dialogue in this movie is really corny and cringy at times. And as far as Michael goes, this is the most Michael has felt like Michael since the first movie. The portrayal of the Shape by James Jude Courtney is really, really, really good. The mask is the best that it has looked in the first movie, and Michael feels like a threat. He has a presence that you feel on screen whenever he's on screen. He's a bit taller than Nick Castle, but you believe that this is the same guy. And a lot of that is the way he is shot and the way he looks, a lot of the movements. He's back to killing at random. There's no more of this, he's just trying to kill his family nonsense. He's just a dude who's killing just because. And that is what Michael should be always. And the score is done by John Carpenter himself, as well as his son. And I believe there was a third guy involved too. Daniel Davies. It's some of his best work, in my opinion. There's a scene we're going to talk about in a few minutes where the music is so good, but just ends a little too quickly. But yeah, overall, the score of this movie is one of the strongest points of the movie. Now, the bad. We have a writer-director combo that have done mostly comedies up to this point, and they tried to force humor into the script, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. The jokes feel forced. They don't feel funny. I got peanut butter on my penis. And also, this movie goes in a direction in this movie goes in a direction in like the last 20 minutes that almost derails the entire movie, with the character of Dr. Sartain, who is kind of this new Loomis type character. I think he's pretty good throughout up until this point, but we get to this point where suddenly there's a twist, and now he's been helping Michael this whole time, and he's the reason that Michael escaped. And if like this, so Will Patton, he plays a cop in this movie. He is great in this role, but so near the end, him, Allison, and Sartain are all out hunting Michael, and they find him, and Will Patton runs him over, and Will Patton is going to kill Michael. Michael's down and out, and Will Patton is going to kill him. He's going to shoot Michael in the head, and that's going to be it. And Sartain ends up getting up and stabbing Will Patton, puts the Myers mask on, and then drags him. So he's been shot earlier in the movie. He has one arm. His arm is in a sling, so he drags Michael with one hand and tosses him into the back of the cop car. Make room for my patient. Ultimately, this is the reason why they tried to put this. Ultimately ends up a very convenient plot point for Michael to end up at Laurie's house, but you didn't need to do this. This is not the way that this needed to go. You could have You could have put him in. You could have put Michael in there. You could have made it work in a much better way than this. I don't know what they were going for, but it doesn't work whatsoever. Favorite character, the easiest answer and probably the right answer for me would be Lori, but for the sake of not making them, of not making her the best character, so they're having the same best two characters in every movie, I'm gonna go with Allison on this one. We're getting a nice setup for a pass the torch for Allison to kind of take over the Laurie Strode type role, which I wish that we had gotten more of throughout this trilogy, but it's set up nicely here, but where we go doesn't ultimately pan out in that way, unfortunately. My favorite kill is that Michael has returned to Haddonfield. He is back and he's just walking from door to door, just killing people at random. So we go through and he kills what is a Easter egg to Halloween 2. He kills this lady with a hammer. We don't see it. It's off screen, but the aftermath is pretty gnarly. So then he gets into the back of the house and walks up the front. And then he walks down the street. He goes to the next house. There's a girl there on the phone, which is another callback to Halloween 2. He goes into the back door, through the back door from there, and this whole effect is really cool. So the girl hangs up the phone. She goes to close the blinds of the front window. Michael comes up behind her, grabs her, slams her front head on the windowsill, and then just stabs her in the neck, and then he's gone. Really cool, really creepy. The fact that we got Michael back and we have no idea why he's killing these people makes him that much more effective. Favorite line is actually one of the few moments of humor that actually work in this movie. That I thought was actually pretty funny, but it's when Allison's friend Vicky is babysitting, which is a nice little callback to part 1. Makes it feel like a Halloween movie again. And Vicky is on the phone with Allison, and she's like, "Oh, you and Cameron gotta come over, and my boyfriend's gonna come over, and we can do the Alakazam." And the boy she's babysitting, Julian goes, "I know you talking about having your friends come over here and smoke some weed." And every time I see that scene, it just makes me laugh. I think it's hilarious. The whole moments between these two are really cute, really funny. I think the chemistry between these two feels natural, and it's actually one of the few scenes of humor that I think actually works for the favorite moment is when Allison and Oscar are walking in the backyard, and this is Michael ramped up to a 10 here. So Oscar is drunk and tries to hit on Allison. He strikes out, and Michael is just kind of standing there watching him. They're in the backyard. Michael is in the bushes watching him, and then all of a sudden Michael's gone. So there's like this motion light that keeps going off. Michael stands still. It goes off. He moves. It comes back. So every time he gets a little bit closer to Oscar, and then Oscar's kind of like, "Fuck's going on?" And then Michael finally attacks him and gets him to the fence. Oscar tries to climb the fence to get out. Michael kills him. Allison comes back and sees that Oscar has been killed, and we get this great musical cue, this great music that plays that is fucking incredible. Once again, I can't play it because I can't for copyright reasons, but go look up The Shape Hunts Allison for Halloween 18 on YouTube. Amazing score. I have wished it gone on a little bit longer, but by far my favorite moment of the movie. Again, at number 4 is Halloween 2, 1981 version of Halloween 2. The good, it picks up right where the first movie left off. Like instantly right after. So you can watch this movie right after the first one, and it feels like a perfect continuation, and it goes pretty much without a hitch. If you, I tend to watch both 1 and 2 back to back, and it feels like a continuation. It feels perfect. Gore is significantly ramped up in this one. It feels a bit more Friday the 13th because this movie came out, so we get Friday the 13th as a result of Halloween. Friday the 13th decides to make it a bit more about gore and special effects. In the first one, we mostly get strangulations, but now Michael's smashing people in the head with hammers. He kills a girl where he fucking dunks her head in the water and fucking in like a hot tub and fucking burns her to death. We get one kill where he sticks a needle in a girl's eye. So the gore is ramped up significantly here. Michael is gnarly. We're getting some kills. So it feel like, even though it's a bit more Friday the 13th, I like it. It doesn't feel too over the top and make it not feel like a Halloween movie like Rob Zombie's movies do. So even I do like the ramp up of gore in this movie because it's not too much movie. The cast is overall mostly enjoyable, although the characters are not particularly developed. That's not any fault of the actors themselves, but I wish they had given some of the characters a little bit more development because outside of Laurie and Loomis, we don't really give a shit about anybody on screen. So we know most of these people are just there to get killed by Michael, and I wish we had gotten a little bit more of an attachment to them. But overall, they're solid. They're very serviceable. The final act is probably the best here out of the whole franchise. It's very intense. Definitely has a definitive ending. Until it wasn't. If you watch the first two movies without watching any of the other ones, you would be satisfied with these two as the Halloween series. It's perfect. It wraps up perfectly. So at the end, Loomis has found out that Michael is Laurie's brother, and he kind of comes to the realization like, oh shit, that's where he's going. He's going after her. So they decide that so Loomis goes to Haddonfield Memorial to kind of save Laurie, and we get kind of a similar chase scene as to part one where Laurie's banging on the door asking for help. Michael gets in. Michael walks through this fucking plexiglass, gets in, and Loomis shoots him. Michael gets up, kills the marshal, and then now it's a chase scene with Laurie and Loomis running from Michael. They go into the surgery room. Michael stabs Loomis, and Laurie has to make a decision. So Loomis gives Laurie a gun, and she has to make a decision. She's like, no, I can't do it. And then Michael gets closer and closer and closer, and then finally, all right, she picks it up. She shoots him in the eyes, and So then Michael's blind now, and he's just trying to get them by sound. So he's just there, and he's just swiping away at everything. So there's like all these oxygen and gas tanks all throughout the room, and Loomis and Laurie are starting all of them, and the sound is throwing Michael off, so he's just swinging at anything. And then Loomis tells Laurie to get out. So she gets out. Loomis has a lighter, and he says, "It's time, Michael," and he just blows them both up. We'll be getting to the next one pretty soon, but we get the next movie in this story pretty soon. But questions about how they survived, whatever. I mean, and then we get this firewalk. Michael is in engulfed in flames, and he is burning, and he ends up walking out of the room and collapsing on the floor. Great ending. Feels definitive. If they had never made another one after this until we get to the Rob Zombie remakes, I would be satisfied with these two movies as the Halloween story. So the hospital setting works very well. Even though the hospital setting works very well here, even though it's a hospital, there's something very isolated and very creepy about it because you never know where Michael is and where he's gonna pop out of. The bad, I'm trying to be as objective as I possibly can here, but the only real negative I have with this movie is the decision that they went with in the near the end, where they decided to make it. They decided that that Laurie and Michael are going to be brother and sister. Even John Carpenter has said himself, because he wrote this movie, that he forced that into the story because he felt like it was missing something. And he said one night he had a 6-pack of beer and he was drinking, and he's like, fuck it, I'll just make them brother and sister. It's forced in this movie. In this movie alone, it kind of feels like a throwaway line. It's like, okay, whatever. Like, if you had taken that line out of the movie, it doesn't change a fucking thing. Where this becomes a problem is in the future movies, and a lot of the problems that we have in 5 and 6 can all be traced back to this moment, and the fact that they decided to make these two brother and sister, even though it made absolutely no fucking sense. My favorite character in this movie, Dr. Loomis. He's a little bit more crazy in this one. Nobody listened to him in the first movie. Now, even he's like fully understanding of what he's dealing with, because at the end of the first one, he shoots Michael 6 times and knocks him over the balcony. He just gets up and just fucking leaves. So even Loomis is coming to grips now, and now he's really amped up to the upteenth degree to stop the evil. If Laurie, I feel Laurie should have had a bit more to do here, but Jamie Lee Curtis literally is in a bed through 90% of this movie, so yeah, not much for her to do up until the final act. So Loomis is by far the best character for me. Favorite kill, Micah, is when Michael kills the nurse with the needle. It's a nice opposition from the first movie. So in the first, I don't want to spoil anything, but in the first movie, there's a scene where Michael is standing behind Laurie, and it's when Laurie first discovers that all of her friends have been killed, and Michael's face slowly emerges from the darkness. So there's a scene with this nurse. Laurie has had a bad reaction to her medication, and then so the nurse tries to go find the doctor, and she is now realizing that the doctor has been killed. She kind of goes backwards, and she kind of goes back, and in the first one, Michael's face emerges from the darkness in a nice dark blue lighting. And this one is very, it's very warm. It's very orangey and bright, and it's a nice contrast to what they did in the first one, in my opinion. My favorite line comes from Dr. Loomis, of course, and it's when he comes to realize that Laurie and that Michael is after Laurie, and that's where he is, because Loomis is hunting him through the whole movie and has no idea where he possibly is at this point. And the marshal Loomis is telling the marshal to go back to Haddonfield, so because he wants to finish it. And the marshal says, "I can't do that. I got orders." Loomis is like, "Those orders have changed." And then Loomis points a gun at the marshal, and the marshal's like, "Doctor, this is not the smartest idea for you." And Loomis goes, "What is it you fellas usually do? Fire a warning shot, right?" And my favorite moment is a kind of a cheat answer because it's not really a moment. It's really a whole a whole sequence, but it's the ending and it's the final act when from the moment when Michael fucking barrels through the glass and Loomis shoots him and then everything happens up until the explosion. All of it. That whole sequence is incredible to watch. It's very intense, very scary. Very intense, very scary. I love it. Definitely my favorite. I'm gonna say that outside of part one, this is probably my favorite ending of the whole series. Number 3. Oh boy, this one is probably my Halloween hot take. This one is probably gonna get me in a lot of trouble. But I just want to say, my opinion, my preference, my number 3 is Halloween Kills. Just reminder, like I said, this is my taste. Art is subjective. With all that being said, I have a fucking blast with this movie, and I have ever since it came out. Flashback scene is the coolest thing that is the closest thing that a lot of us have ever gotten to experience in terms of seeing a fresh late 70s early 80s Halloween theme. Like the flashback scene feels like it takes place in the 70s, and they did an amazing job recreating that time period. And I seriously wonder how much of the budget actually went towards recreating the flashback sequence, because it's incredible the detail that they went to make it look like Haddonfield 1978. And the way that Michael looks is the closest thing that we have gotten to Michael looking like the OG Michael since 1978. It's amazing, and I absolutely love this sequence, everything, how it plays out. One thing that could have derailed this whole scene, they went with a ballsy choice to have someone come in and play Dr. Loomis for it's very quick, and they did it perfectly. They didn't stay too long. They didn't try and change too much. They showed Loomis. He's there. The way that Loomis looks, the voice isn't quite right, but you know what? The way that Loomis looks is fucking spot on. The way that Michael looks, the way that Loomis looks is fucking spot on. It's incredible. And everything, how it plays out, where Michael is where Lonnie thinks Michael is stalking him, and then they end up at the Myers house Hawkins and his partner end up at the Myers house, and Hawkins has to make this really hasty decision where Michael grabs his partner and is fucking I mean, the dude is you can hear it. He is struggling to hang on, and Hawkins has got his gun aimed, and he's trying to get Michael to let go, and he doesn't. So he just makes the decision to fire, and he shoots his partner. And I get it at the same time. Like, I get it. I know a lot of people have issues with this. But at the same time, there is no way that this was going to go one of two ways. Either Michael was going to sit there and choke him to death, or Hawkins was going to do it himself. So he did. Michael gets captured, and that's how we get how he ends up incarcerated again from the end of the first movie till now. Over the flashback sequence, fucking amazing. I love it. It's anytime I get forward to Halloween Kills, I always look forward to watching the flashback. With the title like Halloween Kills, you expect a lot of gore, a lot of violence. We're here for the violence. We're here for the violence with this one. Anytime I'm doing my yearly watch along of the Halloween movies, this is always one that I look at, especially like when I get to a run of like when it's Halloween Resurrection, the two Rob Zombie movies. I do like Halloween 18 is pretty high up on the list, so I do enjoy it. But this is one that I always kind of like Yeah, I can't wait to get to Halloween Kills because it's just so much fun. Michael. So when Michael first escapes from the house, and he gets so he ends up trapped at the end of 18. He ends up trapped in the floor. Lori, Karen, and Michael end up trapping, and Allison ended up trapping Michael in Lori's house. He's burning. Firefighters show up, and they ended up being the reason that he gets out. So Michael gets out, and holy shit, he emerges from the fire in what is a badass fucking shot. And the music you hits, and you're like, oh fuck, you know he's about. You could just feel you. They did a great job portraying the fact that Michael is pissed, and he is ready to fucking wreak havoc. And boy, does he ever! So he takes out all of the firefighters. He's got a halogen. He's just fucking everybody up. He's hurling them up over his head and fucking launching them. He takes a saw and fucking saws one dude in the face. It's pretty gnarly. And we get multiple scenes where he just goes through crowds of people, and it's fun. It's fucking fun. When I'm in the mood to just say fuck it, let's like. I have my favorites when it comes to like that traditional Halloween style feel, but when I just want to watch Michael Myers fuck some shit up, this is my go-to. This is the one that I prefer. But it's not a perfect movie. Not a perfect movie by any means. We introduced some legacy characters here. Marion, the nurse from the first movie, returns. Tommy Doyle returns. Lonnie returns. Lindsay returns. And Brackett returns. So we got, what is that, 5 legacy characters that return from the original movie. And I wish they had given some more of these characters a little bit more to do. Tommy by far takes the most, the biggest role in the movie. The other ones are just kind of there. They're just kind of there. And Marion gets killed off. Lonnie gets killed. Brackett gets killed. So Tommy, the only one that survived is Lindsay. I'm gonna say that Lindsay was probably my favorite of the legacy characters. I wish they had given her a little bit more screen time, but she has the best chase sequence of the movie with Michael. After Michael has gone through another crowd of people, he's kind of walking through the woods and looking for Lindsay. Lindsay gets away, but overall, they just kind of feel like Easter eggs, and they didn't really add too much to the movie. I wish that if you were going to bring them back, I wish you had given them something more to do, personally. And of course, this is a negative for most people, but it's there, and I have to acknowledge it. But the middle part of the movie and the overuse of the phrase "evil dies tonight," they definitely make it feel like a parody. And if you want to use it a couple times, sure. I think it could have worked, but there's a scene in the middle of the movie where this guy who looks like Danny DeVito. So 2 inmates escape in Halloween 18, and now they've set up this plot point where the town thinks that this other dude who looks nothing like Michael is Michael. This dude is like 5'7", like short, like pudgy guy, and doesn't look intimidating at all, and the entire town thinks it's Michael. They don't look anything alike. Michael is this tall, not like super jacked, but you know what I mean, like a fit guy. And it's kind of dumb. It's really kind of dumb. And so they kind of go through this whole thing of mob mentality and how they kind of forced in the hospital. They kind of forced this guy to jump to his death because they're about to go after him because they think it's Michael. It feels really corny and it feels really cringy. The movie's going along at a good pace, and we just kind of stop to kind of put this whole sequence in here. And you could have done it without it. You could did this much better. Much like the Sartain thing in 18, it very much slows down the momentum of the movie. But thankfully, the rest of the movie picks up at a good enough pace to where it doesn't derail it. Favorite character in this movie is Karen Strode, played by Judy Greer. She was one of my least favorite characters in the last movie, but she has a massive step up in this movie. She is much more engaged and much more involved in the whole process of everything. She eventually comes to save Allison, her daughter, and she ends up taking Michael's mask and leading him to the mob, where the mob just beats the fuck out of him until he gets up and fucking wipes out everybody. But overall, she was one of the weaker points in this movie, and in the previous one. In this one, she is one of the stronger points, in my opinion. Favorite line? It's an Easter egg. It's a diminishing returns from the original version of this line, but I love it. I do love it. It's when the mob first confronts Michael near the end, and Brackett is the first one that greets him. He's sitting there with the gun pointed at him. He's like, "Hey, Michael, it's Halloween. Everyone's entitled to one good scare." Like, it's like, okay, I like it. And my favorite moment, as I talked about earlier, I can't go too much in depth because I already have on it, but it's the flashback sequence. It's the best part of this whole movie. Okay, now we're down to the top two. My two favorite Halloween movies. If you're keeping score, and if you're a diehard Halloween fan, these two probably will come to no surprise to you. But number 2 is Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. I adore this movie and have for many years. I have ever since I was a kid. I'm one of those crazy people. That would say that this is one of their comfort movies. This is a comfort movie for me. Whenever I want to throw on a Halloween movie, like whenever I get the urge to Halloween, other than you. So if you're doing by a process of elimination, you know what the first one's going to be. But other than number 1, this is the one that I'm most likely to throw on. We're introduced to 2 new lead characters, Jamie, who is the daughter of Laurie Strode, and Rachel, who is kind of the new Laurie Strode type character, as well as a returning Dr. Loomis, who somehow miraculously survived the fire at the end of part 2. How the hell that happened, I have no idea. But Rachel and Jamie, Jamie is kind of dealing with the effect, so she has lost both of her parents. Laurie has died in a car accident, and she's now adjusting to being an orphan, essentially, adopted child, losing her parents, as well as she always has this inkling that Michael is coming after her. She kind of knows it throughout, although she's young and she can't quite put it together fully. But they kind of spell it out at the beginning that she knows that he's coming. Rachel is kind of your normal teen, and she's kind of adjusting to now being the sister to this kid. She's just a normal kid who wants to hang out with her boyfriend, hang out with her friends or whatever, and now she's adjusting to being this kind of protector role now too. And the bond that the two develop throughout the movie based on what they go through is awesome. It's super fun to watch. It's some of the best character work in the entire franchise, in my opinion. Like I said, Loomis is back. He's a bit more unhinged in this one. He's screaming a lot more, but I mean, the man has been through some shit at this point, so no question about it that he's starting to lose it. But so once again, he plays his usual self. He's warning people that Michael is gonna get up and he's gonna go back to Haddonfield and he's gonna fuck shit up. And um, this time when he gets to Haddonfield, so we get this part in the at this gas station where he's in hot pursuit of Michael, and we get this wicked shot of Michael all bandaged up. And I thought it would have been really cool if they had kept that look, if we got a whole movie with Michael bandaged up, because I think it's a really cool look. Also, it makes a lot of sense knowing that he fucking burned alive at the end of part 2. But Loomis basically pleads with Michael not to go back, and it offers himself as a sacrifice to stop Michael from going back before he starts firing shots into him. So the whole gas station ends up exploding, and then Loomis ends up in Haddonfield. So now Loomis has no car. He gets picked up by this old guy, and they're just kind of shooting the shit, talk about hunting evil. And then Loomis ends up in Haddonfield. And in the first movie, the cops didn't really believe him. Now, Sheriff Minker, who's the new sheriff, is the new sheriff. He listens. He actually listens to Loomis, and Loomis ends up helping Loomis throughout, which is a nice contrast from the first two, as to where nobody really believes him, nobody really listens to him. Now, Loomis actually, now people are actually taking him seriously, which is, it's nice. It's nice to see. So it's hard for me to pick out pick out issues with this movie because I love it so much, but there are a couple. The portrayal of Michael in this movie, well, I have learned to look past this, the few flaws, this flaw in the movie. It by far it pales in comparison to the first one by a pretty big margin. I can look past the Michael because in comparison to the previous ones, I mean, he doesn't quite get there. The mask doesn't look quite right. The walk and everything is kind of not quite right. It's a step down. It's a step down in terms of the Michael stuff. If you had gotten the look of the original Michael, or even the Michael from the new trilogy, either one of those in this movie, I could make a strong case for this being my number one. But the Michael stuff is kind of the biggest hindrance of this movie. There's a fucking scene where they massively fucked up and Michael has a pink mask with blonde hair. So that's a massive unforgivable blunder that was an easy fix. That could have been easily edited out. Why they chose to keep it in, I have no idea. But if the portrayal of Michael had been a little bit better, this could very well possibly be my number one. So my favorite character, I want to say Dr. Loomis. I should say Dr. Loomis. It would be the easiest and the right answer as far as I'm concerned. But we'll be seeing him again really soon. So to avoid having him and Laurie be the best character in every movie, which would be correct, I'm going to give this one to Rachel. Rachel kind of takes over, kind of fills that void left by Laurie, and what could have been a massive detriment to this movie ends up being one of the strongest points. The character of Rachel is one of the great spots, and she, in my opinion, is the best final girl in the franchise outside of Laurie Strode. I mean, granted, Laurie Strode is in it for what? 1, 2, H2O. 1, 2, H2O. Resurrection, I guess. Both the Rob Zombie movies and the new trilogy. So what? That's 8 or 9 movies that she's in. So, I mean, it's pretty slim pickings on what the final girl is. But in terms of like where the rest of the final girls are in comparison to where Laurie is, Rachel is definitely, I would say, even a tier above everybody else as well. And if they had given Rachel a better, more of a story in part 5, which is one of the biggest negatives I have with part 5, is how quickly they kill her off. She could have easily been even higher too. I could have put her number 1 if for my favorite final girl, Halloween final girls, if they had given her more to do to 5, but she killed off. And my favorite kill is Brady, who was a total dick, and I won't say a total dick, but an asshole for sure. He is Rachel's boyfriend, and Rachel ends up having to babysit Jamie, so she ends up having to cancel the date, and he ends up going to bang the hot chick, and we kind of lose like for this guy, but he redeems himself near the end. As everybody is trapped in this house, Michael is after Rachel and Jamie, and Brady kind of self-sacrifices himself for them to escape. He goes down swinging. He goes down. He puts up a fight. He gets a couple of nice. He tries to hit Michael with the shotgun. Well, he has a shotgun. He tries to hit Michael with it, and then Michael ends up flinging him against the wall. He gets up. He's bloodied up, but he gets up and he just he throws a couple of nice shots. He gets a nice couple of decks in there until Michael grabs him, picks him up, and crushes his neck. It's nasty. It's nasty. If you want to hear a nasty sound effect, watch this part of the movie with headphones or a surround sound system and listen to that sound effect. It's gnarly. Definitely my favorite kill by far. The line, of course, comes from Dr. Loomis. And this is one of his more unhinged moments, is when he first gets to Haddonfield and he's talking to the sheriff about what's going on, and he's like, "I'll tell you, Michael Myers is here in this town. He's here to kill that little girl and anybody who gets in his way." Definitely the most Dr. Loomis thing in this entire movie. Definitely his best moment of dialogue, his best monologue scene that we get, where he's trying to preach about the evil. Love that whole scene, and glad that he got listened to. Favorite moment, holy shit! And this is one of the best scenes in any of these movies, in my opinion. So after Brady is killed, Rachel and Jamie make their way to the attic of this completely locked house. And eventually they get out the window and onto the roof. It's too high to jump down. And Michael's in pursuit. So imagine being stuck on a rooftop with Michael Myers chasing you with nowhere to fucking go. That's intense. That's scary. I don't want to spoil this scene for anybody who hasn't seen it. But go watch this scene. It's incredible. It's intense and scary, and how they actually pull off them getting from the roof down is good. It's good because, I mean, what else are you gonna do? There's really nowhere that they can go. And of course, my number 1 should come to no surprise to anybody, but number 1 is the original. Halloween is number 1. This is lightning in a bottle. You have John Carpenter, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Donald Pleasance with a laughable budget by today's standards of fucking $300,000. That's nothing. It's absolutely nothing in terms of a movie budget today. A William Shatner, Captain Kirk mask that they bought for $1, all coming together to create one of the most iconic horror movies of all time. Till the release of the Blair Witch Project, Halloween was the highest grossing independent horror movie of all time. Almost 50 years later, in 13 movies, Halloween is ended up in pop culture now. Even non-horror fans can see the mask and hear the music and know exactly what movie it's from. Shaped an entire decade of film going forward into the 1980s. That is probably the biggest legacy that Halloween will leave behind. I've done so much breaking down the movies on getting up to this point, but I kind of wanted to take a different approach with the first one, because I feel like the first one is so embedded into it. Like, everyone has seen it. There's not much I can really add to it. So I decided to take a different approach in terms of explaining the best parts about Halloween. Halloween spawned a whole bunch of sequels. Like without Halloween, there probably is no Friday the 13th. There's probably no Freddy. Maybe they decided to make those movies anyway. Who knows? But there's no denying that the impact that Halloween had on the rest of it going forward, and ultimately can make the argument that's why I'm even sitting here talking to you right now. It all spawned from this movie, and that is probably the biggest legacy and claim to fame that Halloween has. The bad, it's hard because it's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. But if I'm gonna nitpick something, the budget and the time period, there are some things in the movie that feel dated. Of course it is, though. It was filmed in 1978. But that's about all I have for negatives with this movie. Otherwise, I think it's damn near close to a perfect horror movie. Favorite character, I told you we're going to be seeing him soon, is Dr. Loomis. He's the only one who knows what's up, and what the tower's up against, and he's trying his damnedest to stop it. His dialogue really sells Michael as this unstoppable force. Kill is Bob. Bob is one of the boyfriend of Linda, who is one of Laurie's friends, and the kill itself, pretty simple. Michael picks him up, puts the knife, and knives him through the door. That